Hey, so this is my first video, kind of ever, of demonstrating how to splice one of these wires. What you have from my best estimate and what you described at the field is out in the field you had a connector like this and the wire ripped out from the housing, and the wires are soldered on in the end of this. So what you probably have is something like this, okay, white and black. There's two methods of splicing. I'll show you both methods here. So this method, we're going to use these little heat shrink splices that you heat them up. There's a little bit of solder in it, and that solder will melt and join the wires, and then the little white rings in there are waterproofing. So they're pretty handy, but you have to have a flame to do it. So I'm going to use, I usually use a flameless lighter, but this is a regular old little torch you can pick up at Home Depot or Menards, something like that, that makes a naked flame, which are, you got to be careful with them on any heat shrink. You always got to be careful. So, and all the tools I use, I'm going to send. This is a stripper for stripping the outer insulation off the cable. Pair of wire cutters, which I marked. The wire you have is out in the field is 22 gauge, so I highlighted it on both sides. We're going to use that 22 gauge to strip the wire, and a pair of flush cutters for wire. Okay, and all these tools you can hang on to. So if we use this, the way that these work is the wire. I'll use this one. This is the wire I'm going to send you that has the potted connector, new connector, and then we're going to splice these wires onto this wire. So this method, these little connectors, the heat shrink, you just slide it on there, and you want to get the exposed wire on that little bit of solder in there. And then we're going to slide the other wire in from this side and match it up, matching black to black, black to black and white to white. So, but on the wire that's existing there, you're not going to have enough length. So if you go to slide that on there, it's not going to, you can see the exposed wire is not going to make that little solder in there. So what we're going to do is, where it was previously soldered there, I'm just using my hand here so make sure it focuses. We're just going to let's just cut that off clean. Let's cut those ends off. And then what we'll do is you take this guy, and it's already been set for this particular wire. And the blade, if you're looking at it this way, it opens up. The blade that's going to cut is over here. This blade's retracted, and that blade is for doing like a longitudinal strip. So what we're going to do is make sure you have enough length. So if you do about 3/4 inch somewhere in there, and then sometimes these tend to spiral cut, and so I'm going to push it away from myself and do 2 revolutions. 1, 2, and you'll actually kind of feel it loosen up and maybe see the insulation turn. You peel that off, throw that away, and then what you'll find here is a little drain wire. You can either just bend that back, or you can nip it off. And then there's a shielding in here. It's kind of like a potato chip bag. Now sometimes when you cut the insulation off, it'll come free, and this time it did. Otherwise, you just take these flush cutters and just give it just a little nip, and it'll peel right off. So now you got plenty of wire exposed to work with. Then we're just going to strip the end of those off, just, you know, maybe 1/8 inch to 1/4 inch. So you got it like that. Now this part can get a little frustrating, so there's another method to splice these wires, which I'll show you in a separate video. Because this is the frustrating part, is they're going to want to move. So you want to kind of overlap the wires a little bit. Get that in the middle. Now I'm going to try to bend these wires out of the way. Now you kind of have to try to hold it here so it doesn't move. And when you're working up on a ladder or something, this is tricky. So that's why I'm going to give you another option, which I think is probably the better option. We'll do this one first. And you just want to apply the heat. You don't want to get it too hot too quick, because you will burn the heat shrink. So you just want to just gentle heating. I'm going to try not to burn myself. Wouldn't be the first time. And you'll see that solder start to melt in there. I always start from the inside out, because otherwise, oh, see, I scorched it a little bit. It's okay. That's the problem with using a naked flame. And then it should be good if you let it cool a little bit. Yeah, now they're nice and tight. Now what we can do is go ahead and heat shrink the rest of it, just to make sure it's nice and watertight, which in the cabinet it should be okay. It Shouldn't need to be watertight. But you'll see it melt. Just if you use a lighter sub, you just gotta be careful. You don't scorch it. You can see how I scorched that. And then you do the second one. This is where it gets a little bit frustrating, especially with my older eyes here. It can get a little bit, especially because the lengths don't line up. Something's falling in the shop. And then the trick is to not melt or burn the other one that you just did. So just same thing with a gentle heat. I have some heat guns that are butane. Unfortunately, I can't ship that easily. If you wanted to get one, I could always send you a link. A couple of them available from Amazon, retailers like that. Okay, looks like it melted. And you can go ahead and do the other side. You can see the other sides were already melting. There's so much heat coming off that torch. But I'm holding it about 2 inches away. And that's it. And just let it cool. You always want to let it cool because you want that solder to cool and solidify. You can give it a little tug. You'll be able to see them move. And that looks pretty good. That's all. That's how you do the heat shrink connectors. And they're handy little connectors for doing other stuff. Kids' toys, things like that. So it looks pretty good like that. Okay, and that's it. And then you can plug the other end back into the Rain MX box. And I labeled this one. That's it. I'll show you the next one here in the next video.